Okay, welcome back to Redneck Rantings. It is currently Tuesday, April the 16th, 2019. We got us a brand new rant. Hopefully this one will take between the computer acting up and the dog having to go to the bathroom. Third time's the charm, fingers crossed. I want to take a break away from the heavy stuff, away from the politics and away from the guns and just all of that really heavier talk for a minute and talk about something a little bit more upbeat. I want to talk about something that I have found myself really falling in love with that I honestly didn't expect that would get its hooks into me as deeply as it has. I want to talk about Seth MacFarlane's show, The Orville. Now, yes, I am talking about the same Seth MacFarlane who gave us Family Guy and American Dad and the movie A Million Ways to Die in the West. The guy who has made a career and a whole bunch of money off of dick and fart and poop jokes and a fat dude telling his daughter to shut up. That's Seth MacFarlane. The Orville, for those of you who aren't aware, is basically MacFarlane's sweeping love letter to the Star Trek universe, to the original idea of what Star Trek was supposed to be about by the immortal Gene Roddenberry. And apparently, according to some reports, it started out as a pitch for a new Trek series that MacFarlane wanted to helm, and the people that he tried to pitch it to went, "We're not buying a Trek series from the from the Family Guy. What do we look stupid?" You know? And yeah, they look pretty goddamn stupid when they turned him down. The Orville focuses around the adventures of a ship by the same name. And let's start out right there. The Orville, the eponymous vessel, the titular vessel in this series, is a second or third tier ship. It is not the flagship of the local equivalent to the Federation. In this universe, instead of the Federation of Planet, they have the Planetary Union. And the Orville is an explorer class ship, not really intended to go out there and be really in the thick of it. It's literally what its title suggests. Its job is to go out there into the universe and say, "Hey, what's over there?" And as such, it's really not meant for frontline combat, and it's not one of the top tier ships, which I think it should be given the amazing competency of its crew. The cast they've done a brilliant job casting. MacFarlane did take a little, "Hey, this is my project" license and cast himself as the ship's captain, Captain Ed Mercer. It also has Adrian Palicki, who you may know from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as the second in command. Penny Johnson, who used to play Cassidy Yates on DS9 as Commander Sisko's love interest, plays the ship's doctor. Peter Macon, formerly of The Walking Dead, plays the tactical officer. He plays a member of a species called the Mocklins, who are kind of the in-universe version of Klingons. These are very tough, hardy people who are very traditionally minded, and they are also the Union's arsenal. They get all of their guns from the Mocklins. And he plays Lieutenant Commander Bortus, one of my personal favorite characters. The show does what good science fiction is supposed to do. And I'll tell you right now, yes, there is some humor in it. This is Seth MacFarlane we're talking about, but the jokes are organic to the plot line. He doesn't force them in, and the laughs feel natural and legitimate. What it does really well, better than I think any series in a long time, maybe better than any series since Trek, the original series, went off the air, is it addresses important social issues of the day without beating you over the head with it. there is this get woke, go broke trend that you can see in a lot of genre fiction right now. It's what ruined Supergirl for me. It's kind of infected a lot of the CW's Arrowverse. You see it in a lot of places where it's like, here's the message, and it just fucking punches you in the face with this shit to the point where you get sick of it. They get a lot of shows, they get the message and entertainment balance completely fucked up. The Orville nails it, okay? The Orville is kind of like that cool uncle who shows up, like that cool bad influence uncle that your parents kind of are okay with you hanging out with, and he corners you at a family barbecue, and when he thinks your mom isn't looking, he slips you a beer and says, hey man, did I ever tell you about that time? And by the time the story is done and you finish the beer, you've been entertained by the story, but then you get like 3 steps away and you realize, holy crap, Uncle laid some knowledge on me, man. Oh my God. It's like that. You're so busy being entertained that the vast majority of the time, you're really not paying attention to the fact that important social issues are being addressed. For instance, it tackles the subject of religion and what can happen when religion it does this a couple of times, in fact, very, very well. What can happen when religion becomes the driving force in a society. In fact, there's an entire species called the krill who are genocidal religious fundamentalists who believe that their version of God created the universe for their sole and express purpose, and every other sentient life form is basically a tool-using animal that they have the right to exterminate if they happen to be occupying a planet that the krill want. It has addressed the subject of social media and what happens when we allow social media to become too dominant in dictating how our society operates, and what happens when you fall afoul of the social media, of the mores of the social media outrage mobs. They keep on going back to the Mocklins as a illustrative species of what can happen in certain circumstances, like with regards to gender issues, same-sex relations issues. The Mocklins are ostensibly a single-sex species, and according to the official line, every once in a great while, a female child will be born, but it's like 1 in every 1,000, 1 in every 10,000. And when this happens, the idea is that the government is supposed to step in and surgically alter the female child to be male. So it addresses kind of the transgender issue. It addresses what happens when a male Mocklin finds himself attracted to females. And again, every single time it does this very slickly. It tells a great story. There's usually a couple of laughs. Very, very powerfully written stuff. And it's not a message in every single episode, but when it does deliver a message, it delivers it very, very artfully. And even when you do notice that you're kind of being given a message, and you're never really told how to think. You're just told a story, and you're left to make up your own mind, okay? It does it exactly right, because it puts the emphasis on telling a good story. Now, I want to talk about the most recent episode, Sanctuary. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Sanctuary tells the story of 2 Mocklin parents who choose not to go with the social norms of turning over their daughter to the government in order to have her surgically altered and made male, and instead they go on the run to this planet where other Mocklin females are living openly as female. It's just basically this little refugee colony out in the back of beyond. And that's another thing. The visual effects, and I'm mentioning this because there's a scene in this episode that is just so visually stunning. It may be the most visually eye-catching, beautiful thing I've seen on television, maybe ever. The planet, the Sanctuary planet, is inside this nebula. And it's this vast purple gaseous expanse that, according to Lieutenant Gordon Malloy, the ship's helmsman, must take up, quote, trillions of cubic kilometers of space. And it's this amazing, brilliant purple cloud that you believe is real, okay? I mean, it gets you that well. I'm sorry, I just had to touch on that because the effects on this show are top-notch. It does not look like they were shopping at Doctor Who's yard sale, okay? And they managed to tell a very, very powerful, very impactful story where you care about the characters. And I'm not going to tell you what happens. I will tell you that there is one hilarious scene. And for the most part, this has been a fairly serious episode up to this point. And then towards the end, there is a scene that is played out with a particular song in the background, okay? And the whole point of this episode is that the Moclan women want to live openly as equals to their male counterparts. And McFarlane could have very easily gone really heavy-handed. He could have gone upside your head with a brick and set this one particular scene to something like, I am woman, hear me roar. Instead, he goes a completely different way. Still a very girl power song, but the nature of the song, I'll give you a hint, it's by iconic musician Dolly Parton. The nature of the song is, like I said, very girl power, but it's also such a bubbly, upbeat song that when you see what's going on the screen and you're hearing this is the soundtrack to that sequence, you can't help but laugh your ass off. This is exactly what I'm talking about them working the jokes in an organic fashion and making you laugh without it feeling forced. I could go on for days about this, but it's already like 12 minutes in. If you are not currently watching this series, it is streaming. It is available streaming on Hulu, and I believe it's also available streaming on Fox. It's available. Season 1 is available on DVD and Blu-ray. I really encourage any fan of good quality, well-written science fiction to check out this series. By all means, go back to the very, very, very first episode and just watch it all the way through. It's totally worth it. One other thing about the Orville, and then I'm going to wrap this up, is one of my favorite things about this series, in addition to the fact that it's just brilliant writing, and the effects are great, and the casting is top-notch. Oh, and the fact that there are tons of cameos by Trek alum. Like, for instance, in the episode I was just discussing, Marina Sirtis, Counselor Troy from Next Gen. She has a small part. Robert Picardo, the ship's doctor from Voyager, he's had a couple of episodes. Jonathan Frakes, a.k.a. Will Riker, has directed a number of the episodes. And there's a lot of overlap with like older, more established Trek in this show, both in terms of the casting and behind the camera. Getting back to what I was going to say before I sign off, one of the things that I absolutely love about this show is the fact that the characters are deeply flawed, okay? Not, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved Next Gen. I mean, I don't think I ever missed an episode of Next Gen. I can remember where I was when I watched the final episode of Next Gen, and I really hated to see it go. Same thing with DS9. But one of the flaws in the Star Trek series, whichever one you want to pick, is that it tends to be a show of archetypes. Okay? You have these people who are essentially these plug-and-play, larger-than-life, better than real people, individuals serving in this this military organization, and nobody has any real moments of human weakness. Nobody has any real fatal flaws, nothing like that. The Orville does not do that. What it does is it casts real, believable people with real, believable flaws. Captain Ed Mercer has serious self-doubt issues. He's in charge of a ship that's going off into the far reaches of space to see what's behind the next metaphorical hill, and he's responsible for the lives of 300 men, women, and children, and he has some serious self-doubt issues. Plus, he's not a real big fan of recon. He has this tendency to just go, oh, hey, look at that, and go running headlong into it, which has almost gotten people killed a few times. Gordon Malloy is a high-functioning alcoholic. The ship's helm, think about this, the guy driving the ship is basically a drunk, okay? Like, he literally, the opening scene, like the opening episode, he's drinking a beer while driving his captain and best friend, I might add, in a shuttle to their new assignment, and he's got a beer in one hand while he's operating the ship's control. I'm not making this up. Lieutenant Commander Bordas deals with some really heavy domestic issues. He's married, he has a kid. There are several issues that deal with his domestic problems between himself and his spouse and their disagreements on how to raise their child. There's one episode that deals with porn addiction. The original chief of security was this very insecure young woman who had some real questions about her suitability to the task because she was the youngest person in the fleet ever to hold the position. And this makes the show that much more believable and that much more compelling because these are real, believable people who just happen to be living and working on a spaceship in outer space. I loved Next Gen, like I said. I had all the respect in the world for Captain Picard. I am very much a Picard over Kirk captain kind of guy. I would never in a million years expect to run into Captain Picard. I could totally see myself bumping in to McFarlane and Gordon Malloy, bumping into Mercer and Malloy at a bar somewhere, and knowing Malloy, he'd probably be getting thrown out for doing something inappropriate to one of the wait staff. But these are flawed individuals who overcome their individual odd angles and weird corners and sometimes very real personal weaknesses to thrive and triumph in a very high-stress environment where sometimes the most minute mistake will get a body on the floor, okay, will get people killed. They interact with one another in very real, believable ways. Obviously, they're very loyal to one another, but at the same time, they joke around, they tease, they get pissed off at one another. There's this one episode where Malloy and Mercer are best friends. In fact, Mercer handpicked Malloy as his ship's helmsman, and there's one scene where they get into it, and basically Gordon Malloy rips his captain and best friend a new one. Like, they get into a serious argument very, very publicly, which in the military you're not supposed to do with your captain, but it's something that I could see happening in real life. And this makes the show that much more compelling. All right? So, again, another big reason to watch it because the characters are much, much more believable and it makes it much easier to get invested in them. Whereas, I'm sorry, but with Next Gen and Voyager, really hard to care too much about those people because they're basically Lego people, okay? There's not a lot of depth to them. So, that's that. Like, share, and subscribe. By all means, like I said, watch The Orville. Hit the notification button if there's anything else you'd like me to rant out about. Please let me know in the comments below. Have a great night. I will see y'all next time. Sorry this one ran so long. Bye-bye.